Hello, once again, I'm in the terror zone of life as well as the joyful elements that surround me. So forgive me as there's noise and anxiety creating elements of other people's agendas that surround me. Forgive me if that disrupts the sound quality in any way. It is not my intention. This is Erica Clark Wise, the Renaissance, once again on Hugo MLK K, and you know the KUH is for German for sacred cow, as we bring forth new developments and information about anxiety, health, neuro-weapons, indigenous women, and facing femicide in the paradigm of war in which we exist in 2025. Today still, it's designed to manipulate the human perception. And so let me let some people come into the room as I usually do, and I'll get started in just a few. Okay, thank you so much, viewers and listeners of Hugo MLK Cool. I'm host Erica Clark Wise, the Renaissance, here on August the 10th, Sunday, at a little bit after 8:08, 8:16 p.m. in Eastern Time. Glad all of you are here. Let me know you're here. Hello, Irani, hello. Today, we're looking at the complexity of psychology and poetry and the intersection there, and how I have been able to self-develop my thoughts of theory throughout the decades through my study of such teachers. Welcome to today's episode, where we thread an understanding that has been told in shadows for centuries, a story about control, theft, and survival. This is not just her story, this is the present tense. We're talking about neuro-weapons. Yes, those tools that are designed to manipulate human perception, even vision itself, deployed in ways that strip indigenous women of their intellectual property, their safety, and their right to live freely. This is not random. This is engineered around the world. Around the world, indigenous women face femicide at rates so high it becomes both a global emergency and quiet genocide. And yet it's wrapped in the same old tactics rooted in what Dr. Amos Wilson, the brilliant African-centered psychologist, described as power, consciousness, and organization, saying at one point, we're going to talk about African-centered consciousness, personality, and culture as instruments of power. Therefore, we must organize our consciousness and our personality in our culture, and we see them as instruments of power. He further explains the most practical thing you can have. Now I have someone in the shower on the speaker phone beside me in the place where I'm residing. This is how treacherous in the debacle of takedown of the indigenous brilliant mind is. To intercept my podcast, she is playing some man's voice through the phone to emulate as if this man is teaching me something. I'm telling this in real time because this has been the narrative that they've shared with people in order to try to capture my intellectual property and frame me for their pedophilia and things of that nature. And so back to the personality and culture as instruments of power, we must organize our consciousness and our personality as instruments of power. Amos even explained that the most practical thing you can have is good theory, a good concept to guide our behavior. To be without theory is to always react instead of create. We also learned from Amos Wilson, the leading African-centered psychologist of the 80s and 90s, that we must put it plainly in writing in our history, that it's not merely an academic exercise to write, it is also an academic exercise of self-mastery. He put it in so many words that way. And it is also an exercise of power. He did emphasize that. And thus controlling the narrative around intellectual theft or femicide is itself a weapon, a battlefront that the warlocks hope we can't learn for our long-term healing. And so there is a time when people have to look at the warning signs that are before us. He warned us of the damage that is done when we do not take account of our power and let other outside sources dominate us. He said, we have been under the domination of an insane group of people for centuries and have become insane. Healing should be our top priority. Liberation isn't just legal or political, it's psychological and communal healing. One book I'd like to recommend by Wilson is Awakening the Natural Genius of Black Children, written in 1992. And as we look at our public presence, we see the deep and great need to organize around theory-driven action. Dr. Wilson's tone was a combination of professional precision and unapologetic street-level urgency. He spoke as we should, like someone who expected you to take notes, but also like someone who might stop mid-sentence to challenge your complacency. But strategy alone doesn't keep the spirit alive. That's where we see the work of my studies of Nikki Giovanni step in. And just as I studied Wilson, not to soften the truth, but to remind us why we fight for it in the first place, Giovanni tells us because now we are in the knowing of seeing with clarity that if we fail to organize our own consciousness, our culture, and our power, then someone else will organize them for us. And history has shown us, Giovanni has said, we love because it's our only true adventure. Love here is not sentimental, it's movement. It's the stubborn refusal to let oppression strip away our joy, our creativity, or our vision. In Giovanni's world, even in the middle of war, love is an act of engineering, building something that wasn't here before and protecting it like oxygen. Thank you all for joining us. We're going on to the next part of our lecture about neuro-weaponry, and I just wanted to welcome you all. Please like, share, and comment. Thank you so much for being here. And so for those of us living under the weight of these weapons, the message is clear. Your mind is your territory. Your creativity is your sovereignty. And no technology, no agency, no illusion of dominance can truly erase those who fight back with logic and reasoning. This is Erica Clark Wise, the Renaissance, saying thank you for the prayers. And I also want to bring a point home about Giovanni's poetry and Wilson's psychology and how they converge in liberation. It requires us to delve into a deeper sense of higher consciousness, not in the shallow self-help sense, but in the lived discipline of knowing who you are and where you come from, even when the world gaslights you. This is where the poets, the prophets, and the protectors must reassert themselves, not just in thought, but in movement, not just in resistance, but in knowing that anxiety can lead to physical symptoms as well as emotional ones. Prolonged anxiety, especially if created to become severe through neuro-weapons, has been linked to health conditions such as high blood pressure, heart disease, irritable bowel syndrome, and the weakened immune system. Start waking up more earlier in the morning and walking. Start drinking more water. Move your body throughout the day. These are the things that help us to fight back. And I found that, in this type of work where you're telling the truth and turning the lamp on the wrongdoers in society who harm, you'll find so much opposition. But what we can do is we can guard our mind through reading. And Wilson warned about that. He said that, the damage that is done is under the domination of an insane group of people for centuries, and healing, so legal or political, it's psychological and communal. And one book I'd like to recommend by Will, Waking of the Natural Genius of Black Children, written in need to organize around theory-driven action. Wilson's tone was a combination of professional precision, unapologetic street-level urgency. He says we should, like someone you expect to take notes. And so again, I repeat that for the emphasis of knowing that we're living under the weight of these weapons. This message is clear. Your mind is your territory, as I said earlier. And I hope that message got to the people that it needed to get to. I apologize for the interference of ignorance around me. It is not my issue, but I thank you for being here, and we'll be back next week for another lecture on the growing need of recognizing the illegal surveillance that encompasses us and tries to take us over. Thank you so much.